Oh, let's get back at this. So here's where we're at. These plates for this style clutch drum have been discontinued. I called Welter's Farm Supply in Verona, Missouri. Very nice people. They did not have any in stock, but they did a dealer search, found a dealer in Illinois that had some on. They showed 4. Got me their phone number. I called them up. They actually had 5 on hand, to the tune of $92 a piece. But I guess that's, you know, a beggars can't be choosers type of thing once you get to this point when they're not available. So here's the plan. I bought all 5 of theirs, so don't call them. I think there's 2 of these that just the teeth are gone enough they need to be replaced. The rest of them look fine. So my plan of attack is I'm going to pull the clutch pack on the 1750 unit. It's probably dark in there. And I'm going to put the new discs in mine and then take 2 of the used ones out of there that I'm sure are fine and put them in Doug's. And that way, his is getting fixed good, and the 1750 will have fresh clutches. I'll save him a few bucks. I'll have, you know, something good. But to help with the problem of what do I do, this one's out of an 1850. I pulled it out to get the input shaft out, and it has the older style clutch drum, which all the discs are still available for. And then we had the looseness in the splines on Doug's sprocket. You can't get this drum out without pulling the shaft out of it because of the counter shaft overlapping. So what we're going to do is get this nut off, hopefully easier than the last one, and then pull the shaft out the back. Actually, you know what? I don't have to take that nut off, but I do if I want to use that sprocket on Doug's. Although, does that sprocket look better yet? Now I have choices. This sprocket will be the same. Some of this stuff in here will be this different because this is an early Hydra power. Let's see, that clutch drum's a 107 something something. And this one's a 156 something something. 158 or 6, but an updated version. Now honestly, I think they will both work. All right, enough talk, more do. So yeah, for the moment it's going to be easier to drive this nut off. I guess I can do that in a vise. All right, so I'm going to remove snap ring here, this one here, take out these bolts. I'll be able to pull the whole shaft assembly out the back, then I'll be able to take the clutch drum out the side, and then we'll be able to mock it up in the other one for those of you guys that are wondering what you're going to do if you're rebuilding the Hydra power, whether it will fit. So that's all this part is for, is your benefit and maybe mine down the road. Okay, that's off. Starting to slide out. And now this should come right out the window. Good deal. Snap ring's still down in there. Yep. This has got the updated output shaft, so it should be totally interchangeable. We'll still want to get that sprocket. It's early enough, it's got the gasket instead of the O-ring, but late enough to have the updated output shaft. Let's see, what part number does the gear have? 158-268A. This might have had the update kit put in. Let's see what we can do. Well, old style, new style. You may say to yourself, this is not my beautiful wife, or that those splines are the same. Well, they are. The teeth. The problem is, the older style, the friction is the outer discs that grab in these slots, and the steel separators are these inner ones. So we'd have steel on steel on steel, which would not work. You need steel on fiber friction to grab. So pulling the steels out of this one would not work. After looking at, this is the improved shaft. As a step here for the bearing to hit against. Spacer, shims are over there. And then the other bearing nut to tighten it down. We're gonna get this one apart. I do believe this is the old style, unimproved. No? Maybe not. It's a intermediate design. This gear can only go on one way because there's a cutout for where the teeth end, the splines end. Well, let's get it apart and find out. Because there's another one where the whole stack comes together. Stop. And bearing preload is set by the nut instead of shims. And then everything pushes against the snap ring. Anything gets a little wear in it, your bearings get loose. And that's why they improved that design. Let's get that in a vise. Okay. I swear I had Maple Springs Farms makes these with a 1/2 inch drive end on them. This is the original tool. I'm gonna give it a quick try here. It's still staked. It's probably an effort and futility before I unstake it, just to see if I can get lucky. Like that. And hopefully not tear up the threads or bust the tangs off the tool. Maybe I just did? No. There we go. Yeah, that one that goes on a ratchet would be nice. Ow, ow. We'll give her a little go juice and hope that makes it better. Wish I knew where I hid that from myself. Don't recall loaning it out. I need to keep the log book, or even better, to stop loaning out tools. In case you're wondering, this is ST Service Tool 149, which is also an SAE number 9 spanner nut wrench. In the US we call it a spanner. In other countries you call other things a spanner. Oh, she's starting to leave the chat. And it left the chat. Some people don't learn. It's been semi-broke for a while. Note to self, always drill them out. I've probably done some kind of thread damage or something. All right. You know, maybe I should just get it back over there and drill it out. Well, you know what they say, when in doubt, burn it out. It just needs more juice. See how many things we can set on fire in the process. Oh, let's try that real quick. Come on. What the?
Are you sure it isn't time for a colorful metaphor?
Yeah, I probably borked those threads by turning it without unstaking it. All right, more heat, more juice. It's got a glow. All right, we've got the glow. Time to go. Yeah, that ratchet one would sure come in handy. She's tightening back up already. Ah, bless America. More heat. Boy, if I can see through the fire, the threads look fine on the nut. You think it'd shoot up the threads on the shaft, it would turn around and get the nut on the return pass. I think we're starting to make some progress. Mission accomplished. Probably detempered the shaft, and I bet I ruined the seal. Hot. Probably shouldn't set that on something that burns. You know, details. Yeah, splines look better than that one. Well, there's your lesson for the day. It did. It scuffed up those threads where the stake was. I should have drilled that out first. I was hoping to save the nut. We can clean them up though. O-ring in there. Yeah, I must not have smoked it too hard. It's still pliable. Not on fire. Now broken. Got that. So if you're wondering if you can replace this output shaft seal without having to tear the whole unit down, the answer is yes. Just got to get to that point. Then you put a new seal in, put a new O-ring in, put your coupler back on, torque it down. The biggest thing is you really can't check preload. And if it's an early one without shims, you can over tighten them. So do it with caution. Oh look, maybe it's the heat, but I want to keep this separate from the other one. Nope, it is. It's got the shims. It's got some warmth to it. Everything's all slidey from the heat. But there was an intermediate shaft. This is probably the update kit, honestly, which I think required an update gear. Then you had your spacer and your shims to keep all the bearings nice and tight. So now the question is, will old style clutch pack go on new style output shaft? Let's find out. I tried the nut on the third unit. That one come off without too much disagreement. It was staked, but not very heavily. This is the 1555 shaft, and this is what is called a thread file, for those of you that aren't familiar. It has different thread counts on each side and each end. This is 18 threads per inch, so right there is the 18. Face that down, it meshes in nicely. These are really handy for shafts like this that are big, and a die would cost you a boatload of money. Some of our more talented viewers would probably just put it on a lathe and clean it up. Or at least, maybe you're not talented and you just have the right equipment. Maybe I'm not talented and I just have the right equipment. Let's see how that affects how well this threads onto here. Could be better, could be worse. The nut spun off the other one pretty easy, especially when I got to the end there. So I'm leaning more towards something on here, just needs a little more filing. Probably right there near that gap. 16, 18. There's probably someone more talented than me out there dying because I'm not doing this with my file. I am a heathen. A tool heathen. So the next question probably everybody's going to ask is, where do you get such a tool? And a good friend gave it to me. So my best advice is Google nail file. No, Google Siri, search for thread file. There, half your phones are already looked for it for you. Let's try that. I've got some new nuts coming. They're just not here yet. Bloop. And we tried it with no shims. That was a little tight. Okay. The spacer and 2 shims. Oops, that goes like that. Yeah, the bearing come off a little tough. It's going to want to go back on a little tough. Or I could warm it up some. We're not going to get crazy on the heat here. Just enough to hopefully, you know, help it slide on a little easier. Then the shims probably won't be right. I'll have to knock it off again anyway, so, you know. Whew. Let's set this on here. That on there. It's still going to want to be difficult. Now from there, we can spin it down with the, put this on there, spin the nut down. Yep, and get the nut started. So let's put that back in the vise. And that'll draw it all down. And you get your punch. Man, I'm sure I had one of those. Sure makes it nice to be able to turn these in so much easier with a ratchet. Not even down to where it's squeezed down. Probably need to clean some threads some more. I hope I got the bearing spacing right. I'm sorry, the shims, yeah, it's bearing spacing, whatever. Well, this is gonna have to come back off so I can put the seals in once everything's set. So, you know. Okay, we're back to pushing the bearing on. I am probably gonna have to take a shim out. Let's snug this up. See what it tells us. That's just a little too much drag yet. But it'll work for our demonstration purposes of seeing if we can switch clutch packs. Torque setting for this is 200 foot-pounds if you have the updated shaft with the shim stack. If you don't, then it's, oh, that got her tight. Yeah, we need more shims. Okay. But, as I said, that will get us where we can test this theory out. Someone forgot to hit the record button, so I guess I could back it up. But got it started. And let's try and get, there we go. Got the gear in there, have the offset towards the back. So I gotta get that gear started on this shaft. You came out of there, you should go back in. Sometimes working with the camera in a way slows down the process. We gotta leave the bottom shaft in because, oh, here's something I screwed up on already. I gotta make sure this collector ring is sticking out. So we can just back up and start over. We gotta have that facing the right way, or there will be many tears. So as long as we got this, just to prove that it should fit, I sit it there. That needs to be on the outside. And this needs to be in there. It won't fit through the back hole. But it definitely fits. That's the point of pulling that gear back out, to prove I was not a total idiot. Let's start this on here. You're saying, gee, Chris, that looks like your shoulder. You'd be right. Biggest thing seems to be just making sure, getting teeth, splines to line up. It's a slip fit, but it's a precision fit. So now it's just a matter of getting that gear on there that we know goes on there. Just come up, stay up. Oh, what did I do with those nuts? Down here. Let's put one on to keep it from wandering on me. Oh. Well, I found the holdup. I should have tried it out of the box. Well, this is how we learn. We learn sad things. Okay, let me bring the other one over. Notice how the splines are cut out on this spider set, and they're not on that one because the shaft is different. So we get back to, I am pretty sure now you would have to switch the shaft with the clutch pack, in which case I should have just done the whole thing, but I didn't know that. I wasn't paying close enough attention. All right, well, we learned something. It's not a direct swap. Let's see what else we can come up with. As long as I'm, exploring this and probably wasting time, but we'll find out soon enough. All right, here's our next plan of attack. We're gonna put the old shaft that I took out of there and this tail stock. Looks like it needs a little cleaning up, especially the thread area. And see if we can make that work. Well, I went at these threads with a file, got them cleaned up. This is from the one I pulled out of that 1850 unit. So what my plans are is to mount this output shaft from the green unit into the tail stock of the red unit, and then try to mount everything up with the old style clutch pack. I'm not gonna put the spacers in here. I'm just gonna tighten this nut until everything's kind of, this is just a test fit, so we don't need all that precision as far as tail bearing set or whatever, because this one is not gonna be the permanent one. This is just so that everybody knows what they can do to fix their Hydra power if they need to, what their options are. This is the old gear, just holding it up, making sure, same tooth count, same diameter, same pitch to the teeth. So that's going to be compatible. But we need to use this gear because it's got some of the teeth cut out for where the splines end. We need this and the spot where the splines cut. needs to be towards the back. Yeah, this is our early style clutch drum. There it goes. Well, we're doing good there. I think that's going to work. But we'll go ahead and slap a couple more pieces on, just in case, you know, stuff. We'll put a nut back here, keep things from wandering. None of this really has to do with Doug's unit here, because I was able to find those last few remaining clutch discs at a dealer. So this is just for our learning purposes to figure out what our options are. I'm pretty sure that this would work, but sometimes you just find stuff that you didn't realize. Okay, yeah, that's missing the gear, all right. I'm not gonna bother putting a snap ring on the front there. We know that gear matches up, so the counter shaft should be fine. Yes, the teeth mesh just fine. So I ain't gonna bother putting that counter shaft in, or lifting it up. But I will throw the input shaft on to make sure that's all gonna get along. Little doggy. There is a lip seal right here. I'm glad, Doug will be glad. The lip is gone from that seal, so it could have started putting oil into the clutch area. So good thing we did this, Doug. Let's see, that goes that way. It's getting there. Oh, there goes another one. It's just a matter of wiggling until all those clutch discs fall into place. Now this should work because later years this input shaft replaced the old style that worked with these old style things, so that shouldn't be an issue, but once again, we're just trying to be thorough. There it goes. Just that O-ring. Well, if I can get that cover to made up without, you know, having to draw it down, just a little with a meat hammer here. Those turn all right. We're good there. All right, I will slip the cover on real quick just to make sure this is going to line up. It still says that it says cast right into it. It says front on one side, and that's facing the front. Let's get you over here. Oh, I'm gonna have to roll that in so there's room for the pump. I don't mean I have to put the shaft in yet, though. There. That'll help if it line up. Well, with just shoving the shaft in there, I wasn't sure if things would turn or if it'd get caught. But collector ring lines up with the hole. Everything's together. And, well, this is up on the dowel pin. But there's nothing there. There's no reason that's gonna interfere. Biggest thing was just to make sure this spacing was right, and it is. So there you go. If you can't get those clutch discs, I guess the next best thing, you'll have to change the output shaft and that gear behind the drum and the drum. But you can get clutch plates still for the old style clutch discs. Who knows how long that'll keep going, but we've proved that it will work. That's as far as I'm going to take it. Everything fits, everything turns. All right, let's go back the other way and get back to putting Doug's unit back together. I went ahead and took the early unit apart, just putting these parts on the shelf and stuff I didn't need. Just wanted to show why you got to be careful about over tightening a nut on an early one. Those others had a step here to keep this bearing from going anywhere. And this first version it all went together like this. And of course, there was the tail support and other bearing. Snap ring on here. So all that, more you tighten down this nut, it drew that together, and that's how you set your bearing preload, was just by tightening a nut and staking it. So if you tighten it too much on these early ones, there's nothing to keep them from forcing together too tight. So that's the downside of replacing the seal without disassembling the whole unit. You could make a spacer and get some shims, or make some shims to go in there, but it's still going to be putting that pressure against that snap ring, so that's something to consider. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Yeah, good timing. Some of the goodies come in the mail today. 5 of these clutch discs, 164 313A. Good luck finding some. Those will go into 1750, and a couple from the 1750 will go in here. And I'm tired of staked nuts, so I found, this is called an, what is this, a BH Bear Hug 09. This is an 09 or standard, what did I say that spanner wrench said, but SAE number 9 spanner. This is an SAE number 9 nut. It's kind of a standardized thing once I figured that out. But it's got nylon locking threads. That's nice. And I also got the W09 SKF locking tab. So this is going to be more like an over and under when I'm done. Instead of ram jamming it all home and scuffing or messing up threads, we'll put this on here. It'll engage that keyway. Then we'll tighten this down. And once it's all good and tight, we'll be able to, them ears are slightly a different off space, off center, whatever, I don't know, but we'll bend one of them down into one of the slots there, and that will give it another reason to not turn on us. I can put the link. I got both of these off from Amazon, third-party suppliers, but the price was good. Way less than 65 bucks for the regular staking type nut that you get from Agco. This does come with a seal kit if you get one. We're working without a seal kit today. That's a big share of the cost of a seal kit when that nut's just 65 bucks on its own. I think this was 20. I think this was just 7 bucks or something like that. So I'm gonna get some parts cleaned up. We'll come back. Let's get this shifts, but wow. Usually that's ugly. As in, you know, it takes a lot of effort to get that plug out. I guess that probably means someone's had it out before, but we're not gonna argue with it. I don't know if we really need to take that out. We don't need to lose it either. What we're after is this O-ring right here. Oh, don't you go. Got him. We'll just leave them right on the magnet. Oh, we're going the long way, but the narrower way, where I don't have to stretch the O-ring as much. Guess I could look it up and see what size it is. Oliver was always pretty good about having O-ring sizes in the book, so you can just look them up, the parts book that is. You look them up and just get your own O-rings if you want. Source them locally at an auto parts store. That looks like the one. It's got just a little squeeze. I'm gonna say it's right. So I think that side cover is ready to go on. But of course we gotta put other stuff in first. The counter shaft goes in very first, and I guess we might as well just get started on that and move this out of the way for the moment. Okay, I just robbed these out of the 1750 Hydra Power. I didn't record the struggle bus of getting the snap ring out of there. So I'm going to replace 2 of them and the rest of them I think are fine. They're already pre-soaked because, well, they're used, so ain't gonna get too wound up about oiling them like usual. Did anybody count? Trying to think of how many steel and how many friction there were. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 friction. And we finish up with this thicker one. Now the fun part. This is probably where I should put my gloves back on. These can slice a finger pretty easy. The edges on them stamp rings are sharp. There's the two baddies. And you can see, boy, that one's really... Next one wasn't quite as bad, but they weren't much longer for this world. Usually ends easier than out. I say that. And then I'll probably, shoot an eye out or something. Got a little bit left, but this will work better for that. Snap. Yep. They're able to turn. Yeah, it's polished up where the rings go, but there's no, I can't feel any indentation, so that's a good sign. About the only thing that gave me pause to thought, and that was something I didn't get on the side cover, is, I guess it ain't as bad as I thought now it's cleaned up, where that O-ring rides. They get vibrating and any dirt gets in there and it just can chew away at them. It's marked front. Oh, I thought I had it. There's one. You don't want to beat on this because those rings will break and then you'll be crying. Okay, I got that zip tie on there. Now the fun part will probably be getting it out. Front. The first one ain't too bad because it can, I don't want to hit the second one. Okay, up, up, up. I think I got it, other than I gotta get that zip tie out of there. Come on, break. I don't have to get up and go get something. There it goes. Yeah. There you go. Let's not pull that back off. Let's throw in 2 more shims. We're leaving out the seals because we don't want seal drag dragging us down. And we'll see if that bit of heat helps it slide on a little easier. And when you have to do this so many times to set that bearing preload, that's when that ratchety socket really comes in handy. I'm sure it'll turn up as soon as I'm done with all this. No, we're not there yet. Still too tight. All right, one more. I ended up putting all the shims back in. I could have sworn when I started this and I tightened things up, it seemed like it didn't get tight, but maybe it was that lousy nut. But with all the shims in, it feels right. Might be able to feel just a little bit in play. It calls for 1/1000th. Rolls nice and smooth. I think we're going to call that good. So now I just need to get this nut back off and put the seal in and the O-ring in. 162-875A is the part number. And according to this, it's an SKF 5. Oh man, my vision's getting bad. 54159. What's that last one? Can you see it? Let's get off the telephone of magnification. And it is a SKF 541597. Well, I can still pass my driving test. But it doesn't have any sealant stuff on it. Let's make sure it fits this too. Oh yeah. So let me grab some of that stuff. How dare they? Well, I got the seal drove in and forgot to, record. Boop. All right. We are going to put on this retainer thing here. Then we will put on our new bear hug nut and tighten it down. Let's see if any of them are lining up with the... Well, that one almost is. If I can get her to tweak just a little more. See how this feels. That feels good. A little more drag, but there's also a seal in there, so. Oh, I went past, but, oh, this next one lined up. Did that feel like 200 foot-pounds to you guys? Okay, I could possibly, if I get a little more, get that tab right there. Well, let's try it. Oh, it's close now. Let me tighten my grip on the vise. Still turning the same. So I would say we're against the shims and not over tightening the bearings. Oh yeah, there. Yeah, that got it. Now I need to do, bend that tab over. Oh, I still went a little past. Guess I don't know my own strength. A little finessing. And it gets in there. What do you think? We're turning. So we got the nylon part keeping it from turning and that lock tab from keeping it turning. I don't think it's going anywhere. And that feels good. Okay, right in here is an O-ring. Got a new one. And before we set that counter shaft down in there, we need these thrust washers. What I do is put some good red and tacky on the back side, trying to keep them from wandering around too much. Something like that. There's a tang that sticks out that catches that little notch in the housing to keep the thrust washer from turning. And like that. I never disassembled this. The thing. These will swing out over, these will swing around on you, cause you grief. The Sprag clutch is no longer available from Agco. This one seemed to be working fine, so we're rolling with it. Stay in there. There is someone selling a substitute one on eBay, if you punch in the original part number, you'll find the auction. It's a German-made Sprag. It's different, but supposedly the way it's built, it has more wedges in it and can handle more torque. So in theory, it should be better than the original. But I have not tried one yet, so I can't give it an endorsement saying that, yeah, this is, but you know, I guess if that's what it comes down to, I will try one. Just not today. Okay, I need to find the O-ring that goes in that housing. I have several leftover seal kits from over-unders, 3 or 2 speeds. Sometimes they need, you know, they all come with all the parts. So sometimes you use the gasket, sometimes you use the O-rings. So I knew basically I had enough to do all this without doing another seal kit. Just using the remnants. Yeah, it's like a carpet remnant. And then the small O-ring here for the drain hole. That came out of a seal kit, or sorry, an O-ring kit. I think we said the step goes to the back. I even have a new snap ring I can throw on the end of this shaft. One of those kits. Fingers. If I stick something in there to prop this up, it'll go a lot better. Man, like that. Once it's on the splines, it goes fine. It's just getting all those splines lined up. It's a challenge. Well, that's flush. That's okay. Snap ring groove is showing. Yep. Yeah, might as well get that in. Is it this one? Nope, that one's too big. Yeah, let's get this apart. There's this O-ring. Save that so we can match it up. There's a snap ring in here. There's a seal in there we want to get to. Where's the opening? Almost the complete other side. Someone was thinking, oh man, this could be a challenge. Well, I had to take this and push on the end to get the end up closer to this notch. Then kind of tap this around to work its way out. Okay, where's rubber hammer again? Over there. Yeah. There's the lip seal we want to get to. It's stiff. It wasn't leaking. You can see there's rust and crud in there. But it probably wasn't much longer before it was gonna be. So, good thing we're doing it. Oh, the curse of pushing the power button but not the record button has hit me again. Seal is driven in. I've already forgotten the number that was on it because, well, I recorded it. But this is the official Oliver part number, 162876A. They were supposed to be sending some with those clutch discs. Somehow or another they missed those, but they didn't charge me for the stuff they didn't send me, so no harm, no foul there. I just took what I had for the 1750 and we'll just have to replace that. Put a little grease on the lip there to give it some initial lubrication and help it slide up on the shaft. And that's when I noticed that I hadn't pushed the button. But there was crud and stuff up in here. The seal area is fine, but just ahead of it was dirty and pitted, and I wire brushed that. So I think that's gonna get up on there fine. Before we stick it back in though, we'll get this seal installed. This one should come out with a little more success. A lot more lip to grab onto here. Just like that. Oh, this one is a 101678A seal. Let's see if there's some cross-reference numbers on there. I'm actually recording this time, so looks like this one's also a national. Yeah, there's the word national. 481016 SSR. Now this seal engages the back shaft, and we can see it fits good there. Now traditionally, you'd want it this way, and I still think I'm going to mount it in that way. The book actually calls to mount it the other direction. Does this one have a spring on it? Yes, it has a spring. And the idea is mounting it in backwards, it's less likely to roll this. Make sure I'm getting that. It's less likely to roll the lip over or something if you're a little off, you're wiggling and all that stuff. But I've never had any problem with it. Because by the time it gets that far, there's a pretty good chamfer on this shaft to get it started. It is a double lip seal, and it does seem to work backwards. That's what the book calls for. So, you can make up your own mind as to which way you want to do it. Put another dab of grease on this seal so it helps slide up on that shaft. Now we just gotta, get this snap ring in. The opposite of what happened before. That was loads of fun. Okay, yep, it's in the groove. So now begins the fun part. Getting the rest of it in the groove. Just tapping against the snap ring. Make sure it's seated all the way around. Oh, that wasn't too tough. And that deserves a little grease to help it slide in. I have two, dowel bolts. Just 3/8 bolts with the heads ground off, cut off, and chamfered. That helps keep things lined up for engaging those plates, and when we get to the seal part, kind of make sure nothing's sitting wonky. Let's see, there's this notch cut out. That's where this spool lines up, so you want to make sure that's right. Yeah, I guess I had them lined up from earlier. I don't know. We are up to the O-ring engaging, but don't want to force it because you could distort something in there if the teeth aren't engaged right. I probably shouldn't get too excited because I might need to, once I get the bottom shaft in there, turn that front plate so one of the holes is in there so I can help align the thrust washer. Might have to pull it back out just a little bit. So yeah, we won't get too wound up quite yet. So let's do that. Oh, I still need to pick this O-ring off and replace it. I'll do that real quick. Okay, I've rolled the shaft into the middle. Carefully stuck my finger in there and got the thrust washer back in place. So then I can just, let's see, this notch faces that bolt hole there. So from there, I just need to hold it up. Okay, look at that. That's almost too easy. Now we're probably up to that washer in the front. And yep, that's not aligned. It's about as far as we're gonna get that. But it's just enough for me to get my finger in there. Probably not gonna be able to see a whole lot, but hey. It started. I think a little tonka with the rubber mallet ought to drive her the rest of the way home. Oh yeah. We have this, it'll go in the back there to hold the shaft in place. So that keeps it from coming out, keeps it from turning, and then it can't go forward because the front cover blocks it. See a little grease in there. Make sure there's no flecks of O-ring from it, you know. And there are none. So now we're back to finishing getting the input shaft in. Doug sent it without the bell housing on the front and no bolts in there, so I'm just going to put a couple of short bolts in it to hold it on. So I'm going to grab a couple of those and then we'll just put a little pressure on them and try to get that to seat in. But we're where the O-ring is starting to enter, so it's going to take a little bit of force to get that in. And got to remember, when I was testing it with the other cover or with the other shaft, I didn't have an O-ring on, so it slid in easier. You can see the lower gear there, but I am going backwards, just trying to make sure that plate got jiggled in. Didn't feel any binding, so I think we're good. We can even do a little test here. Now the engine normally turns this way. Okay, we're pretty even there. I'm gonna put some resistance on the output just to make sure. But we'll go around a whole revolution. And well, some of it got wiped off. There's our grease spot that was on the input, and then here comes our one on the drum. So you can see the drum, the output shaft is turning slower than the input shaft because you got small gear, big gear, small gear, big gear, so you get some reduction. In direct drive, what we're doing is putting normally it's hydraulic pressure. But that hydraulic pressure goes in through this collector ring. The seals on the shaft there keep it going where it needs to be. There's a hole drilled through that goes to the piston clutch. Piston pushes, snap ring on the front keeps it from going any farther. And so those all squeeze together. There's so much friction, it drives the tractor that way instead of through the gears down here. And because it's doing that, it can freewheel. I'm doing this by turning the output shaft. But the output shaft now speeds up, which is good because the pump is driven here, so the output of the pump speeds up more for more lubrication and pressure when you're in direct drive when you need it. And I'm gonna hold the input shaft, but that sprag clutch, which is a one-way clutch, just lets the shaft freewheel inside that gear. And this is what's also happening when you're going downhill and underdrive, is the output is turning faster than the input. But when you engage direct, going down a hill, that's all squeezed together. It can't over accelerate. So you don't go freewheeling down a hill. That's why it's important to leave it in direct going downhill. But that's how she works, pretty simple. But that's why you gotta have that. They either needed to come up with a clutch pack down here, which was gonna be kind of constricted with space. The Sprag clutch works just fine. The only downfall is it freewheeling. Obviously, it works. People are still driving Olivers. And so this one's working. I'm going to do the air test one more time and see if I can keep my air hose and nozzle from leaking so much, so I don't have so much, so I can tell if things are leaking up in here. Sounds pretty good. Depending on where the air compressor is at, that's anywhere from 120 to 160 psi. It did just kick off, so it's probably up around 160. Pressure we're looking for is 180 or so, so it's not going to hurt anything. So there we go. I think we're ready for a side cover and finish sealing her up. One other thing, you'll see holes in here, some oil. There is a gap in this piston ring, so some air or oil will get by it, and that oil pushes through the clutch discs to help lubricate them when you're in underdrive, to get them wet. But the biggest thing is for cooling. That's why there's all those grooves in the friction discs. Little bits of oil can slip through there and help keep everything cool, and it's got to have somewhere to go, so they drill some holes for it to come out through. All right, we've got the gasket greased, or I'm sorry, it's got aviation gasket stuff on it. Okay, we got new O-ring in there. Oh, stay in there. Come on. There we go. He said there was a pretty bad leak on the back here. I'm going to assume the way everything was in there that was it. But it could be, something down here. We will test run it and address it if anything does start to drip. Okay, I got to replace his fitting I broke. I'm pretty sure I got one of those over on the other bench. You don't have to go much more. Come on. Okay. Get back here. There we go. That ought to work. Now, if I remember right, I ended up spinning this end out because the nut didn't want to turn on the... So we'll just, get that one in first. Now we just need a drain plug, and I've got a cooler loop line I can test it with. I guess probably ought to put the shifter back on. That's going to be tough. Ta-da! And I'll want to put a gauge on it. Oh, I think all the holes are plugged. If not, it'll let us know. Generally, these take about 5 quarts. This might end up taking a little more because it's got the cooler up in front of the radiator instead of the heat exchanger on top. 5 will definitely get us going, which is what he sent with it. We are using ATF, a Dex, should be equivalent to a Dexron 3. It's on a stick. It'll work. It's not like we're going to move a tractor with it. Uh-oh. That hole there, I just remembered it's supposed to be a stud. and instead it's a leak point. Well, let me grab a stud off from one of the others. Okay, I gotta point this out because I just learned something new. Notice, you can maybe read it, but it's a 107419A case. And I had to put a stud in there because that's a blind hole, or I'm sorry, it's a through hole, not a blind one. And so fluid could come out of it. And so generally Oliver would put studs in any that were through holes, put sealant on the threads, and then you could take it off without draining the oil. So over here we have 3 different cases. This is an early one. Still a 107419A. And it is not a through hole, it's a blind hole. Right in there. You can see a little nub. And I think what they started doing was machining that off because that lets the counter shaft slide over a little farther without that nub on there, but then that opens it up to the oil. So they had a stud instead. This one's got the nub. This one's out of that early 1850. It too has the nub for a blind hole. Now we get over, and of course this one, once again, a 107419A casting case. We get over the 1750 here, and it does not have the nub. It is still a 107419. It is still a 107419A case, but as you can see, the shaft gets to roll over a lot farther without that nub in the way. So I don't know if they changed the casting. They may have. I could have to look at the back side of that, and things are in the way, so we're just going to go with that. But this is as far over as this shaft can get, barely off center. So whether they machined it off or took it out of the casting, they did not change the part number. So some will have a stud, some won't. All right, I always test these with a cordless drill. Make sure she's shifted into low gear. And this is just a piece of radiator hose. A will fit, flex hose. Okay. I want it to go that way because that's the way the engine turns. I wait for the chuck to get to one end or whatever. There it goes. All right. Now we should see this fill up with oil because that's the cooler circuit. Once everything gets full, and then pressure should come up. And there she goes. I'm in underdrive right now. I also remember the last Hydra power I did, this gauge ain't sensitive enough for that low end pressure. I had to switch out to do a lube circuit pressure, but she's obviously pumping, the tube's full. When you get to direct drive, that's when the pressure kicks up where you need this gauge. Oh look, it was time for a battery. All right, there, fully charged battery. So far I've been in underdrive, just getting everything, lubed up. Let's shift. I think my belt slipped for a moment there, my hose. Yeah, she's only making about 110. Well, we need to put some shims in that. I'm sure it held fine. for what a 1555 is going to do. Well, we need to add some shims. There we go. And this will probably let a little oil out. There's one shim in there. And I pulled a couple of shims out of the parts machines, or parts units. One of the units actually had this, a broken piece of spring in there to act as a shim, because the spring that is in there looks fine. I shifted up a gear to get a little more speed, and the pressure stayed the same. Oh, I think the drill turned itself off. We'll shift back to low gear. Or I depleted that battery already. Yeah, it doesn't change the pressure any. Well, speed doesn't. That got me up to 130. Let's try the next gear again just to be sure. Oh, that battery's already. Yep, 130. No matter which speed it's turning. All right, time for a fresh battery. I think this one's kind of seen its better days. Seems like it should have lasted longer than that. This time I pulled a spring out of one of them other units. The newer of the two. Not my 1750 one though. Yeah, I'd say those two I put in there are actually washers. Only got me another 20 PSI. And let me get a bolt. We'll pull that spool out, make sure it's moving freely. I always forget if it's 5/16. It is 5/16. Now that moves easy enough. Seems like it has a fairly good seal. I can feel it kind of wanting to build to be a little springy. It's trying to build pressure as I push it in. I guess for giggles, we'll try the other spring. But it does not feel any stronger. There's something that would definitely help. This is out of one of the Olivers. This is out of that red unit there, the Cockshutt 1555, which really shouldn't matter, but this plug is shorter. That would put more push on the old spring. All right, we'll try this one. Well, let's try the two washers and the cap that came, and the spring that came out of the parts unit. Yeah, that got me at 130 also. So I think what I'll do is try the original spring with the new, or with the old cap, the green cap. Yeah, you know, that felt like it took more pressure to get started. That's underdrive. And yeah, this doesn't. The first reading is 30 PSI. I think lube is like 20 or something. Yep, got us up to 150. I think 160 is minimum. I like to see them up around 180. I'm gonna double check the book. A couple more shims added. This ought to get it up. The book says minimum 140, maximum 190. So I'm hoping this gets us up around 160, 170. Yeah, right about 170. I can live with that. I've got another gauge coming. It's supposed to be here in the morning. And we'll test one more time, but it only goes up to 200, so it should be a little more accurate and also show the lube pressure. Okay, I got a new gauge. Oh, that was in. Well, let's see. Oop, time for a fresh battery. Okay, this one's charged. Well, this one's showing 180. Brand new gauge, so it's reading just a little higher than that other one. Still about right where I wanted it. Let's see what it shows for lube pressure. 20, 25. Let's shift up a gear. Unit's a little colder this morning. It's ATF, but it's still going to be a little thicker because I had the heat down overnight. Well, let's see how well the drill can handle the high-speed shift. Yep. Gets me about 180 either way, just a hair under 180, so that's perfect. This gauge will be a lot better for testing these Hydra powers and over and unders. 200's a much better range than, what was the old one? That one was going up to 600. Yeah. 600 pound gauge is not very good for testing only, 20, 30 PSI. So there we have it. She is done. I just talked to Doug. He's going to come and get it soon. I learned a couple things working on this one. Always little nuances, stuff that probably overall doesn't make a difference, but I don't see any signs of leaking, and there is that seal where the two shafts meet. We don't need any oil, escaping there. And there is no sign of it. We are good to go. So I don't know if this is the end of part 1 or part 2, but it is the end of this particular unit getting fixed. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and if not, just that it was entertaining. Okay, a postscript to the postscript. Thought it was done, but it's not, because I did some searching online. It took a while. And I finally found a clutch from, it was originally used in a dresser bulldozer. And apparently Komatsu uses it too. But it's, this is the Case IH part number, 886934C1. From what I can tell, it's a discontinued part. I was able to find one through an old parts warehouse. I ordered just one. They didn't have too many, but I didn't want to buy a bunch and find out I was wrong. So here's the test. Input shaft, drum. Get on there. We know you're going to fit. There it goes. Look at that. Beautiful. And as far as, this is those ones I bought from the dealer, the last ones that they had. These are the actual 164 313A as supplied by Agco before they were discontinued. And as you can see, the OD is almost perfect. This is just ever so slightly smaller than the other. Not enough to cry over. There is one more difference. Let me grab some calipers. I do believe, according to what I could find online, there is a difference. 117. So yeah, these are about 0.117 thick. See if I can get a tooth. It's a little thinner at the teeth. 0.70 on the teeth thickness. This is the original. Let's see, it's still zeroed out. This is about 0.69. So not too far off from the thickness of the teeth on the OEM one. Pretty darn close. And I don't think the teeth are much thinner on this. 0.038. So slightly thinner. And then you got, you know, this at about 0.69 or 0.69, sorry. So it is almost half the thickness of the fiber one. So take that into consideration. You could say, well, that's not good, but it could be good because you can stack more of these in there and actually have more clutches in the pack. That's usually better. I know, like some of the later over and unders, the high horsepower ones, they put thinner plates in the overdrive clutch pack so they could get more of them in there. That gives you more friction area so you can carry more load. About the only thing is the teeth being slightly thinner, they're more likely to dig into the shaft, but hey, what are you gonna do when you can't get it? And then one last thing you're probably thinking is, Chris, that ain't the same type of material. I think this said this was a brass or a bronze friction material. And I say poo-poo on that because if you go to the original style clutch pack, the friction discs on these are a bronze brass type plate with ears on the outside that engage this outer drum instead of the inside. As I mentioned earlier, they reversed them. So the material doesn't bother me any. I think the thickness would be all right. The biggest thing is you're probably gonna get an extra friction and an extra separator in there. I haven't done the math, but normally you have 5 friction and what, 6 separators? Or is it? I would have to look that up. But you might actually be able to get a couple more of these in there. At least one more, I would think, because the separators are still going to be the same thickness. Well, math, you know, you guys can figure that out. I haven't done it yet. I'm just telling you what I've found, that there is a substitute. And you're saying, well, cool, wait a minute, Chris. You were saying earlier, that's a discontinued part. I punched it in at Case IH, their parts website, and I could not get anything to come up with that number. But there is this website, steeringclutch.com, General Gear and Machine in Boise, Idaho. Make sure this is showing up all right. And you may recognize them from some of my other videos. They carry a reproduction part for the Clark front axles, like this one here on the 1600. Okay, let's go with IH. And find, and go. There it is. So you have to go to their IH/Komatsu, yada, yada, yada page. There it is, 886934C1, bronze bimetallic, 34 internal teeth. $20 each. Now that's a deal if I ever heard one. That looks like what we've got here. That is way less than I paid from the parts warehouse, used part, or well, new old stock parts warehouse. So the best thing to do is just call with that part number and tell them, you know, hey, I really want to have that 886934C1. Do the math on how many you think, but at $20 a piece. Okay, let me hold on. I'll turn off the camera and do some calculating. 0.117 times 5 is equal to 0.585 in total thickness. So 0.585 divided by 0.069 shows you would need 8.47 of them to make up that thickness. Of course, now we have the dilemma of how thick a separator is. So let me measure that. Like, golly, they're not much thicker. They're 0.072. Let's go with two more, so we got 0.069 times 7, that's 0.4083, and then we've got 0.072, two more of those, 0.144. Does anyone remember what the other number was? 483. All right, 7 times 0.69, yeah. Oops, that should be 0.67 times 0.069 plus 0.144. Okay, that's a little bit thicker. But if you, let's see, yeah, if you added 2, you'd still have to add 2 separators. Let's see, make sure I did that right. 0.07, oops, clear. 0.72 times 2, yeah, 0.144 plus 0.483, 0.627. We wanted 0.585. So that's a little bit on the thick side. You don't want it so much that the piston will come out of its thing. Since these are thicker, you could do 6 times 0.069, it's 414, plus 0.144. Well, that's not too bad there. If you just put 2 separators in, 1 more clutch disc, that get you slightly thicker than before. The other option would be machine just a 10,000ths or so off this thrust one that goes on the end to get you the distance that you would need. That would be the simple way, or probably the most accurate way. Well, I'm really dragging on here. I'll edit it down. So that's where I would go, I think. 414 plus, that would be 20 thousandths thicker than before. The other thing would be, go back with 7 times 0.069, it's 483, and only do 1.072. That's still about the same, 0.555. Guess a guy would have to kind of feel it out and see either how tight the clutch pack would be, or like I say, take 20 or 30 thousandths off the thick one here. That is not going to make that much difference on it. It'll get your gap back to standard. You'll have 2 more clutch discs in there, and at 20 bucks a piece times 7, you're talking 140 bucks, as opposed to these discontinued ones that I paid $92 and change a piece for. And well, you know, I jumped on it because they're, well, non-existent. At this point, since I paid so much for these are going into $17.50. And maybe next time I order Clark parts, I'll order some more of these, and I won't have another clutch drum to put them in though. I'll probably order some just to have them on hand. But once again, it's an option. It beats the heck out of you know, having to buy more parts and converting it back to the old style for $140 plus an extra separator or 2. Something for you to consider. And that wraps this one up. We're just going to call her good there. Lots of information. Do with it what you will. I make no claims about suitability or things going right or even things going wrong. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.